All right. I am going to go ahead and get started, but we'll talk a couple minutes before jumping into advocacy. So, welcome to Ask the Experts, a conversation hosted by SCAD Alliance. Today, we are discussing SCAD and advocacy. Um, so, in addition to Zoom, we're trying to get live streamed over to Facebook. And then, regardless, we'll be recording the webinar and hosting it on our YouTube channel as well as our webpage. So I'm Rebecca Freeman, and I'll be moderating and leading the conversation today. I'm a board member of SCAD Alliance and two-time SCAD survivor. If you're new to SCAD Alliance, we are a nonprofit organization founded by survivors in partnership with leading cardiologists and health advocates to advance the science of SCAD. So in addition to our independent multi-center iSCAD registry, one of our main goals is to support patients and families. And as part of that, we've developed this monthly webinar series, Ask the Experts. We hope to offer support and education to survivors and caregivers by engaging in conversations with SCAD experts on topics each month. To be sure to check out our past webinars on genetics, PTSD, exercise, FMD, emergency room care. All those are linked to Facebook, YouTube, and our website. So today we're talking about advocacy. What is advocacy, and specifically, what does it look like as a patient? I know personally, and having talked with many other SCAD patients, a question that comes up at different points is a feeling of, can I or should I be doing something? Sometimes it's arising from a sense of needing more tools for one's own health. Sometimes it's a draw to engage in a larger community. And so the idea of advocacy sometimes invokes solely legislative or policy changes, and that's certainly part of advocacy. But advocacy broadly is defined as supporting an issue or cause, and ensuring that everyone is able to have their voice heard on issues important to them. So there's many ways to be an advocate for your own health, connecting with your community, raising awareness of SCAD. And we want to reiterate that, absolutely this doesn't look the same for everybody at all times. But our hope today is by discussing some of these things and having a variety of perspectives on this, will provide some ideas and starting points. So I'm excited to introduce our panelists and begin our discussion. So first we have Katie Adams. Now, Katie survived SCAD in 2017 following the delivery of her fourth child. She also has a carotid dissection and diagnosis of FMD. And over the course of her SCAD recovery, Katie developed a passion for wellness as she discovered the positive impact of a healthy lifestyle. So she shares frequently about her health journey and struggles, as well as information about all aspects of wellness in her Facebook group, Healthy Hens. And Katie advocates for FMD and SCAD awareness on a regular basis. In addition to being a busy wife and mom, she is executive director of Kentucky SHRM and HR director for Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. We're glad to have you, Katie. We also have Dr. Melissa Wood. Dr. Wood has played a leading role in the SCAD medical community, creating tailored physical and emotional support for SCAD patients. I am fortunate to be one of those. And in previous webinars, she's discussed the benefits of SCAD-specific cardiac rehab, and today we'll be discussing peer-to-peer mentoring and other programs for SCAD patients at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. Dr. Wood's co-director of the Corrigan Women's Heart Health Program and Kathy Minahan Chair of Cardiovascular Disease in Women at MGH, as well as Associate Professor of Medicine at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Wood is a SCAD Alliance Scientific Advisor, Principal Investigator of the iSCAD Registry site at MGH, and iSCAD Registry Steering Committee member. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Wood. And also Dr. Tina Pittman-Wagers is a teaching professor and clinical psychologist in the Department of Psychology and Neuroscience at University of Colorado Boulder. Tina had a heart attack from SCAD in August 2014 while swimming across the lake. As a clinical psychologist, Tina has a longstanding interest in evidence-based treatments for psychological disorders and accurate diagnosis and treatment of women's mental health disorders in particular. Tina's research focused on the lived experience of SCAD survivors and has led the development of a SCAD Warrior app. So she'll discuss today how that app has helps patients' personal advocacy efforts. So we're really glad to have you here as well, Tina. Thank you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over to Katie to talk about her story and kick off our discussion.
Wonderful. Let me pull up my slides here. Maybe. Are we good, Rebecca? Wonderful. So before I jump in, I'd really like to extend a heartfelt thank you to SCAD Alliance for the very important work that you do. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to join you, Rebecca, as well as Dr. Wood and Dr. Pittman-Wagers today to discuss a topic that is very near and dear to me. It is meaningful and quite humbling to be able to use my experiences to help others. So truly, thank you for inviting me to share today. Like many of you, I am a survivor. My SCAD heart attack, like Rebecca said, was in 2017. I was 36, and it was 2 weeks after the arrival of our fourth child. And I do also have a prior carotid dissection and had a series of TIAs or mini strokes in 2008 when I was 27. And I do have underlying FMD. It's possible my father, Paul, also had it. He passed away at 30 from a sudden brain aneurysm. And really it's that connection to him and the possibility that one of my own children could be impacted by FMD or SCAD that really propels me to advocate for awareness as much as I can. So like many survivors, when I left the hospital after my heart attack, I pretty much immediately tried to get back to normal. And quite frankly, I failed miserably. I struggled to just get through the day. I was scared and angry and always exhausted. I took care of my kids and I maintained at work, but I felt just overwhelmingly hopeless and helpless. And it was almost a year before I processed what had happened and recognized SCAD for what it really is. And it is quite frankly loss, and it is trauma. And we collectively, we survive a traumatic event. We lose something and we understandably grieve for it. Makes me a little emotional. For some, that loss is temporary, but for many of us, it's a permanent change. We lose, the security and safety within our body, and we have new restrictions, and we're not able to have even an additional pregnancy. There's a wide variation for how it impacts us, and there really is no new normal. I don't like that term because there's frankly nothing normal about trauma and rare disease. But there is so much life left to live, and we can find our way to happiness again. And that's what advocacy has done for me. It has helped me move beyond feeling hopeless and helpless to hopeful and empowered. So what do I mean by that? Well, as you see here, to empower you or anyone is to make them feel stronger, make yourself feel stronger and more confident, especially in controlling your life and claiming your rights. But hope is also important. And those in my Healthy Hens group hear me talk about hope all the time because there is so much power in hope. And it really is the key for me and for many to recovery. And striving for someone to be optimistic, striving for yourself to be optimistic, and think that good things will happen. So how do we get to empowered and hopeful with advocacy? I'd like to start with what I consider it to mean to advocate. And for me, I like to think of it as a fight, and it's a fight for someone or something. And I think of it as a fight for myself and then a fight for SCAD awareness. So, I wonder if you have thought of it that way, to fight for you, your needs, your self-care, your boundaries, your mental health, your physical health, and even your time. So what I mean by that is that, we're talking about that when something is as intense as SCAD, we maybe expect the solutions to that to have that same level of intensity, but there's actually a lot of relief and healing in just practicing that everyday self-care. Those small healthy habits and the action of putting energy towards you and your well-being every day. You know how you'll hear on a flight, the flight attendant will say to put on your own oxygen mask before you help someone else. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. We can't overlook the impact that self-care has on our overall well-being. And that's something that I really did most of my adult life. I was one of those people who was really, really good at taking care of everyone else but myself. My needs were always last, and I thought that self-care was selfish. I put in way too many hours at work, and after SCAD, I couldn't do any of that anymore. I started to have to really shift my thinking and realize that self-care is self-preservation. And those healthy habits enhance and protect my mental and physical health, which actually benefits my family and my loved ones too. So I encourage you to start with this question if you're kind of thinking about yourself. What do you need to feel like your healthiest and happiest self? And then start looking for ways to build that into your day. Some other ways that I learned to advocate for myself was to change my attitude towards help. I'm very independent, and once right after SCAD, I was really distraught. I called my sister, and I was holding the baby, and I was just like overwhelmed by taking care of 4 children and work and the house. And she came to my house to help me. And as soon as she arrived, I literally handed her the baby and started vacuuming. I couldn't accept that she was there to help me. And so we really need to look at asking and then receiving help and look at that as a way of taking care of ourselves. Another thing, I have to guard my time very carefully because I know in the evening, in the late afternoon, I start to get very tired. And, rather than just getting frustrated with that, I've learned to be very careful with my good hours and to not overschedule myself and to prioritize the good hours that I have. And then counseling, I call my counselor my paid friend. And I really can't say enough about going and talking to someone and getting that help that you need. That is literally advocating for yourself and your mental health when you reach out and go take the time for that. And I think I could probably write a book about counseling, but I'm going to move on to something I'm very passionate about, and that is wellness. And I started my Facebook group, Healthy Hens, really as a form of accountability for myself and to connect with others. I wanted it to have a focus on positivity and gratitude. That was something that was important to me that I was working on. I'm not a coach. I'm just a woman on fire for wellness. And at the time, I was 100 pounds overweight and struggling. And I just really needed a safe space to learn and to get information from other people because I truly didn't know much about wellness at all. And I immersed myself in it. And I share frequently not only about the workouts I'm doing or the food I'm eating, but about the reality of life with rare disease and chronic pain and what works for me and what doesn't. And that connection is truly impactful for me. It's a way that I can advocate for myself and things that are important to me, but also hopefully show other survivors what is possible with life after SCAD. And I am now, I think I can call myself a reformed couch potato. I'm no longer constantly stressed, and I've been able to keep all the weight off, which is just a wonderful thing. I exercise daily, I sleep better, I stress less, and I eat lots of colorful food. And those things really do add up to feeling better, even with SCAD and FMD, even with all the restrictions that we have. So I can't say enough about how important that is. I advocate and I really encourage you to advocate for your own self-care and to build in those healthy habits as a priority, as important as your medicine, as important as going to your job every day and talking to your doctor. It's really important to take care of our bodies. So let's move on to talking about advocating for your health care. And this is something I learned when I was just 27 and I was being turned away repeatedly at ERs. And they were telling me that, I just had a migraine or it was just hormones when I was quite frankly having TIAs in front of them. So I learned very young that I really had to speak up for myself and push sometimes, but also to partner with my doctors. After SCAD, I found myself at a crossroads with my health. The cardiologist who had saved my life, really, he didn't have any interest in SCAD and he discouraged me from seeing a specialist. He blamed my heart attack on my weight and he dismissed my concerns about FMD and my dad's history. And he said I just needed to go live my life and stop being scared. So my husband and I, we turned around and fired him. And we started thinking about trying to find someone who specialized in SCAD. And I read a quote at the time and it really resonated with me. It said, the ideal doctor-patient relationship is a meeting of two experts. The doctor has the medical expertise and you are the expert of you. And I was so fortunate to find a really great specialist just 3 hours away, Dr. Esther Kem at Vanderbilt, who I love and adore. And I also found a wonderful local cardiologist, Dr. Jamie Kemp, who works closely with Dr. Kim. And it has made just a world of difference in how secure I feel in my body in dealing with this rare disease. And I'm gonna say it straight. I really do believe this. It is our right and it is our responsibility and it's our duty as patients to be our own health advocates. Our health is impacted by so many things, such as our genetics, our diet and lifestyle, our history, our stress, and no doctor can have that vast amount of knowledge that we have of our own bodies, and you are the only one that does. So it's vitally important to learn to work in conjunction with our healthcare providers and add our expertise of our bodies to theirs. And I want you to feel empowered in advocating for yourself. And these pictures here just kind of show you what that looks like for me. And so I encourage you to read articles on SCAD and your prescriptions and any devices that you have implanted or such, and talk to your pharmacist, maintain your own records, get the apps. I have the apps for every provider I see, and I create logins and I go in and look at my tests and look at their notes, and I write down any questions I have and I talk to them, and I make sure I understand what they're telling me. Good doctors will talk with you and explain things to you, and I can't tell you, they're worth their weight in gold. So I encourage you to assemble a care team that wants to work with you and fosters your empowerment. And don't be afraid to find those doctors who treat it as a two-way relationship. I also encourage you to establish a support person. And for me, that's my husband. He's informed on both SCAD and FMD, my medications, any symptoms I'm having, and he goes with me to my appointments. And, that's important because SCAD and FMD can be scary. And sometimes we hear things that maybe frighten us or anger us, or we don't want to deal with, and we kind of shut down during those appointments. And I need him to be my ears and sometimes even my voice, or I need him to advocate for me if I happen to be incapacitated, which thankfully has only happened a few times. So that he can tell whoever is attending to me what my health history is. He also checks me. So if I am hearing something, sometimes I might twist it. I might make it seem worse or better than it is. So he's kind of there to help check me and make sure I heard things correctly. And that's a picture of me too at cardiac rehab, which I can't talk enough about. Cardiac rehab is so important for that healing journey for your body. I really do encourage survivors to find a program. And there's a lot of them out there that are actually virtual right now during COVID. I hope that'll be a trend that we see continue for those that don't have a rehab program locally. There is a lot of value in that in-person connection, but if you don't have that, I think the virtual option is still a really wonderful thing. And then those are my pills. I take quite a few every day. At first, those really bummed me out, but now I think about them as part of maintaining a good quality of life and hopefully protecting me from any future events. And then my bracelet, it really gives me a lot of comfort when I'm out and about. If something were to happen to me, I know that all my information is there. And it also is strangely an opportunity to advocate on the fly. So a lot of people who see it will ask me what it's for, or they'll admire it. And then I find myself in a conversation about SCAD or FMD and heart health. So those little things can be an opportunity to advocate. So living, as most of you know, living with a rare disease can be scary. And a lot of us hear the question, oh, what is SCAD or what is FMD? Even from a doctor like in an ER. And, that can be frustrating, but it is an opportunity to also spread SCAD awareness and to share about the importance of heart health or whatever other factors you're dealing with your body. And it empowers me to when I educate somebody else. I'm what I would call an introverted extrovert. So some of the things I'm going to share with you maybe would be uncomfortable for you, but I find it to be cathartic. And there are more subtle ways to advocate for SCAD awareness if you don't want to really put yourself out there in the public. So the first thing is to share your story, and that can be so many things. Being an advocate can be as easy as opening up about your condition and sharing your story to educate others one-on-one. Or for me, that was sharing my story. AHA connected me with some local publications over the past couple of years, so it's been shared in print, and then also went on the news and shared. So that may not be comfortable for you, but you could certainly talk with somebody one-on-one or in a church group or at your workplace. There is also a story about my wellness journey as a heart attack survivor that was shared on Pop Sugar, which is just a website that's pretty well known. It was shared about 9,000 times. And when I saw that number, I was thrilled, not because I was about, oh, Katie lost weight. No, it was about the fact that 9,000 people have now read the words SCAD and FMD, and they thought to themselves, you know, oh my goodness, she had a heart attack. I wonder if I am at risk for that. I need to learn about that. So I think that advocacy can be related to a lot of the different things you're doing. In my career, there was an article written about my HR background, and there's just one sentence in there about being a SCAD survivor. And I wanted to include that again, so somebody reading that would maybe be curious about SCAD and go read about it. So it can be small and it can be big when you're sharing your story. I encourage you to think about participating in research. The iSCAD registry is something that I am very proud to participate in, and it reassures me that research is not only occurring, but that I'm playing a role in it. And as someone who has numerous nieces and nephews, 4 children, hopefully a whole lot of grandchildren one day, I think that there's a lot of value in participating in that research. Forging relationships with nonprofit organizations that do work related to SCAD. SCAD Alliance, of course, is my main priority, but I also try to connect with FMDSA when I can, and American Heart, which is something important to me here locally in the Louisville area. We've done the Heart Walk. You see my flag there on the screen with one of my daughters. And hopefully in the next year, depending on what it looks like with COVID, we'll be forming a team. There's about 15 survivors here in Kentucky that hopefully will form a team. Fundraising is another option, and that's something you can do behind the scenes. You can contribute as much as you're comfortable giving. And if you so desire, you can also ask for support from your loved ones and your peers. So that's something that goes towards research and also spreading awareness. Something else behind the scenes is to hand out white paper and pamphlets at providers. I took them to my OBGYN, and they actually had a staff training on it. And that made me feel good that I was doing something that hopefully will impact, not hopefully, that could impact other women down the road. If they were to be having heart symptoms, I would hope that they would think back to that patient that had that happen to them and encourage them to go get checked out. I also took those same white papers to my local ER. It's a small hospital, and so I was concerned if I presented, they wouldn't know what was going on. So I wanted to educate them, as well as a local fire station that has been to my house and taken me by ambulance before. I wanted to make sure they knew what my condition was and understood that. But you can also mail those things. So if you don't want to go and hand somebody something, it can be putting together a couple of mailers and putting them in the mail. And then you'll see here some pictures of meeting with survivors. I've gone to some different organizations and spoken about SCAD and heart health. That's me and my friend Nika. We met on a SCAD survivor board, and we've participated in some different SCAD Alliance events. That's my friend Karen in the background with the red. We met at cardiac rehab and have stayed good friends these last 3 years, and we participate in some mended heart events here around the Kentucky area. So those connections have really helped me so much over the years. And that is a form of advocacy, reaching out to other survivors and being someone they can talk to about the things they're going through. So just in conclusion, here are the key points. And then I would hope that you would feel comfortable staying in touch with me if you'd like, or I'm extending an invitation to you to connect. I know what it's like to feel like you're alone when you're dealing with a chronic condition, and you are certainly not alone. What inspires me every day to advocate is the role I can play in empowering survivors and women of all backgrounds to live their best life and be their healthiest self and have a high quality of life no matter what else is going on in their life, and to not let anything stand in the way of that, to be empowered and to be hopeful. That's all I have today, and thank you so much.
Katie, you are absolutely phenomenal and inspiring. Thank you so much. I know I speak for all of us on that. Wow, thank you so much. That's awesome. I want to move over to Dr. Melissa Wood, and the mic to you now.
Katie, that was incredible. I mean, just hearing your story, and congratulations on all the personal changes that you've made. But more importantly, in addition to your own life, the hundreds and hundreds of people you have touched in addition have really, and everyone feels your energy when you speak, and you live advocacy. And thank you so much for doing what you're doing. And it's actually quite interesting. You really gave me a bit of a segue when you talked about virtual cardiac rehab. Because we have been able through advocacy to really go to Capitol Hill and talk about the importance of not only expanding cardiac rehab and making it more accessible to people. And one of the ways we were able to do that was taking away the rule that required a physician always be present in cardiac rehab, and actually to allow an advanced practice a professional such as a nurse practitioner or a PA to supervise cardiac rehab. And that's actually allowing many more places to have more available cardiac rehab. But then additionally, we were able, because of COVID and all of the success we have seen in those few programs that were able to do virtual cardiac rehab, to really push for funding and support of that. And that has just recently passed. And so I would say that not only as patients do we advocate, but you need to talk to your care providers about their role in advocacy. I've been an advocate for my patients my entire professional life, and because I see the power of telling a patient's story. And it's really exceptional when we can bring patients with us. Not right now, of course, because we're doing everything kind of virtually, but when we can get back to visiting either our state house or going to DC and having patients with us sharing their stories, it's very impactful for our legislators. So thank you again. And really, I want to say, please get involved in advocacy in any way that you can. I want to share a little bit about what we've done at Mass General. We started seeing a larger number of SCAD patients when we developed a SCAD program now about 6 years ago. And one of our first patients had actually been a survivor of a pulmonary embolus before she had SCAD. And she came to me and said, you know, I have to tell you that patient support of one another has been an incredible part of my recovery from my pulmonary embolus, because she'd been quite sick. And she was cared for that at another hospital. And she kind of gave me the idea and helped us start a sort of patient support group at our institution. And, you know, as best as we could, we tried to cobble together 3 or 4 sessions per year. And in fact, when the pandemic hit this year and we converted to the digital format, and then Dr. Gibson got a hold of that idea and then shared it with SCAD Alliance. And then here we are today. You know, these little ideas have huge footprint if given the opportunity. So I want to thank that patient for starting what has turned out to be an amazing thing. But I also want to say that, you know, she really, really struck a nerve when she said that patient support, you know, for each other has been an incredibly important part of her recovery. And so what we decided to do was develop a peer mentorship program. You know, we try to educate our patients during their visits and provide a lot of medical information. And of course, share with everybody the resources that are available online like SCAD Alliance. But we realized that, no one other than a SCAD survivor um, can really relate to another patient. Like, you really have to talk to someone who's gone through the same thing you have to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And we recognized if we could take sort of some of our veteran patients who had been through those acute moments, have gone through cardiac rehab, and have actually been able to return to their life, that we would be able to help the healing of our patients early on. And so we developed this mentorship program, and I pulled together with some fabulous research team members, including Shelley Mishra and Francesca Ponzini, sort of some training for people that were interested in being mentors. And I can quickly share, in the interest of time, I don't want to take up too much time, but I will show you sort of what we pulled together to share with our patients. And that is sort of a training kit. And I think it's been very helpful for our teams to be able to have this kind of information. And I would say that although we have been doing this on an individual basis, some very motivated patients in our Mass General group have actually pulled together and have created sort of a Zoom support amongst themselves, especially during the pandemic. And what we have found that has been so helpful is to try to match mentor and mentee who may have sort of a lot in common, either a similar age, similar occupation, small children at home, or empty nesters, to try to find some common ground so that they could relate as to the way that SCAD had affected their life. So I'll quickly run through some of these slides. And this is really what we've developed as a toolkit, and I'll happily share it with you to sort of get an idea of what we think are the skills that one can kind of pull together as a mentor, so you can effectively mentor those who are recovering from SCAD. These are some of the things that we've talked about, which really are resources in the community, building your own personal communication skills as a mentor. And I think building communication skills is important, not only as a mentor, but also as an advocate. You just heard an articulate, advocate advocating for herself and for other individuals that are survivors of rare diseases. And I bet that although she's an incredibly, I'm sure, very exceptional human resources professional, I bet that Katie actually did some personal work to become a better spokesperson, because it takes practice and you really want people to listen to your message. So that communication building is really, really important. I sort of talked to you a little bit about the background of our mentorship program, but what we really wanted to share with people who were interested is that being a mentor not only benefits your mentee, but it actually helps you in your recovery. And that's sort of something that we kind of have pulled from hearing about some of the other types of recovery programs that exist, and that it's such a bi-directional benefit. It helps the mentor really have a sense of purpose. It enhances their well-being. And we know now from sort of doing informal canvassing and reviews of those individuals who've gone through peer mentorship in our program, that the mentee certainly felt a huge sense of relief with being able to talk about some of the aspects of their recovery with someone who'd already gone through that. We found out, we asked those individuals in our programs about their interest in becoming mentors, and did some informal training, but have also tried to provide interested individuals with these materials. And then I sort of took the personal responsibility for developing a matching algorithm to be able to match mentors with mentees. And we're actually trying to develop a more operational approach to that, and to gather research in doing that in the future, because this is such an important and rewarding relationship. And you'll hear from Dr. Pittman-Wagers about some other cool things that are coming down the pike to help with stress management. But we really encouraged our mentors to share with their mentees some materials that are available that will help them develop some resilience and manage the stress that's in their lives. In many cases, that was there prior to their SCAD, and in fact may have contributed to their SCAD. But certainly for all SCAD survivors, there is the stress afterwards of having a condition that isn't yet really well recognized and treated. And we don't have great solutions for it at this point. We provided a list of resources, and now I'm so excited to say we have yet another app to go on this list, which is SCAD Warrior, that you're going to hear about. But these are some books and mindfulness apps that we have found helpful. And I am giving a selfless plug to my book, Smart at Heart, that I actually wrote before our SCAD program. And it was actually, it's a 10-step holistic approach to heart healing in women, but many of the things in our book actually do pertain to recovery from all forms of heart disease. And so I think that amongst these other books are very, very helpful. John Kabat-Zinn's book, Full Catastrophe Living, although the title is a little bit scary, the book is fabulous and is really helpful as people recover from their SCAD experience. We also provided a list of videos and links that are available for our mentors to share with our mentees. When I talked about building communication skills, these are actually some resources that will help you become a better advocate for yourself. Katie did such a great job talking about how important it is when you meet with your doctor to talk about things that are important to you and to hear what they have to say, but also to bring someone with you when you're really overwhelmed. It's great to have someone there who can take notes. But when you're talking to your clinician, it's incredibly important that you can articulately share your symptoms and your questions upfront so that you can get the most out of your visit. And we talk about that here as well. The communication with your clinical team is really important. Also, we want to help share self-care skills. Katie said this at the beginning, you know, her life was about taking care of everyone else and not taking care of Katie. But now I think she takes care of Katie so she can take great care of everybody else in her life. And I think we all need to learn this. Much of what we provided here, I think, will also be available in the SCAD Warrior app that you're going to hear about. And then there are a number of community resources that we learned about that we could share with our patients to help make their lives easier as they recover from SCAD. And I just want to share 3 of our amazing SCAD champions who've actually shared their stories publicly and have been a huge part of our peer mentorship program. These are links to their own personal stories that were shared, that were created by Mass General with their permission, and they really tell their story of recovery, and it's just an important thing to be able to see. And I also cite Dr. Pittman Wager's paper on SCAD female experiences of their experience as a SCAD patient. So with that, I will finish up and hand over the podium. But again, I want to thank you all for being here today. Thank SCAD Alliance, thank Rebecca, Catherine for pulling this together. These webinars have been incredibly beneficial to those of us caring for SCAD patients, and I certainly know that they've been very beneficial to our patients as well. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. And I can speak to that. I'm sitting here taking notes myself from both of you so far. So thank you so much, Dr. Wood. Dr. Pittman Wagers, I want to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to give a virtual round of applause to Katie and to Dr. Wood too. I'm just really honored to be on the panel with you. And you have, both done so much in terms of patient advocacy, really admirable. Okay, so advocacy. So here's what happened. I'll just tell you a little bit about how I got into this role. So a few weeks after my SCAD, I wrote a blog post about what had happened to me. This is, I guess, a form of self-advocacy in retrospect, but it's just something that I do to kind of work out things when I'm having difficulty. I write about them. So I wrote this blog post and I put it on this site called Girl with Pen, and Catherine Leon found me. And so in many ways, everything that I've been able to do since then, in terms of research, in terms of advocacy, in terms of various projects, including this app project, really goes back to SCAD Alliance and Catherine Leon, who just kind of brought me in. I was on the board, and and it made room for, my interests in kind of the psychosocial experiences of SCAD patients. I just think that it's such an important organization in terms of making room for patients' voices and experiences, and really taking patient advocacy to a whole new level of collaboration and expertise and education. So I just really want to express my gratitude to Catherine for sort of bringing me into this world, and in many ways just enabling me to do what I've done since then. So all of my advocacy and research efforts are really desired by or guided by a desire to learn more about the psychosocial experiences of SCAD patients. Not surprising that I'm a SCAD survivor and also a psychologist. So that was a little bit predictable. But for me, when I had my SCAD, it was certainly one of the most unexpected, jarring, stressful experiences that I had ever had. And it really forced me to recalibrate many aspects of my life. So I was interested in learning more about other SCAD survivors and what they had been through. And so that was certainly the motivation behind the SCAD survey that we sent out about 5 years ago. Some of y'all might have even participated in that. And that's the basis for the paper that Melissa just cited. But I also wanted to learn what helps us heal, what helps us bounce back or find meaning in what has happened to us. What helps us navigate this new world of healthcare that a lot of us had never really had to engage with before. So a lot of what I've been doing since then is really focused on those questions. And the app is in many ways a culmination of that work. So I guess the other thing that I've learned about the kind of advocacy that I've been involved in is that advocacy is a team sport. So I've been so lucky to get to collaborate with some amazing psychologists and survivors and cardiologists, physical therapists, who were also committed to working on behalf of SCAD survivors, helping them heal, making sure their voices are heard, and helping them adjust to this new post-SCAD world. We're hopeful that the SCAD app can help survivors, especially new survivors, but not just new survivors. But we hope that it'll help folks get a head start on understanding this diagnosis and being proactive about healing and navigating the kinds of psychological, emotional, and interpersonal challenges, many of which Katie and Melissa have already referred to, that SCAD poses for us. So I'm going to give you a little preview of the SCAD app, and then I'm going to give you some directions about how to download it, because today is the day that we're finally launching this thing. I feel like it's been like a really, really long pregnancy is how I'm feeling right now. All right, so now see that? Perfect. So first, just a word of thanks to all the people and institutions that have collaborated on and contributed to the app. It's been a super long process. The app was initially funded by a grant through CU Denver, the Center for Women's Health Research there. Dr. Jonathan Schaefer was the PI on that study. Katie Sears Edwards from Stanford has just made huge contributions to this app, as well as Catherine Leon, Melissa Woods on the app, Esther Kim's on the app. She's got a video. And along the way, we've been able to involve several other contributors who've made videos for us and really helped to refine the content on the app, so that at this point, we really feel confident that what we've got on the app reflects so much of the expertise that we have in the field and in the research in the area of SCAD. But let me tell you, it definitely took a village. So here's our secret weapon. I just need to give a shout out to Paul Embleton. He is a a graduate student and at the University of Colorado, Denver, and has hung in there with us, a bunch of psychologists and cardiologists who, you know, on our best days are technologically compromised, and on our worst days are completely technologically incompetent. And I guess if you're going to do anything like this, I'd strongly suggest that you get somebody with remarkable tech savvy and also patience on your team. So, as a SCAD survivor and psychologist, I really like the idea of working in person with SCAD survivors, but that isn't always possible. And that was even before the pandemic. But more importantly, I was interested, along with a lot of others, in getting something into the hands, like literally into the hands of SCAD survivors that would give survivors evidence-based skills and up-to-date information that they could keep coming back to again and again over the course of their SCAD journey. We also envisioned that the information and skills would be useful for family members and loved ones, maybe even physicians and mental health providers who were caring for these patients. So this is a screenshot from the splash page of the app. I didn't even know what a splash page was before I started this thing, but it's the first screen that you get to. We're excited that moving forward, this page is going to feature artwork from SCAD survivors. So thanks to SCAD Alliance for helping us coordinate that effort. Our team has literally put years of work into listening to survivors and the kinds of things that they want help with post-SCAD. And I think that there's actually a lot of overlap between what we've ended up with here, what Katie has talked about, and what Melissa has talked about too. But we've been, reading the literature and contributing to the literature a little bit to gain more insight into, what the typical struggles are for our SCAD survivors. And I should mention, some of these ideas arose from the SCAD survey that we did 5 years ago, but also from survivors who worked with Katie Sears Edwards at Stanford and Melissa Wood at MGH, and so many survivors who Catherine Leon has heard from over the years. We took all of that material and developed short, accessible, interactive, bite-sized sort of morsels on this topic. So first of all, what is SCAD? How's it treated and diagnosed? What kinds of tests and diagnostic procedures might you undergo? A little bit about stress and SCAD. This idea, I know Katie hates this term, new normal, but so my apologies. But the idea of like, we all have had that experience of the SCAD that we went through kind of shaking up our worldview in some way. And so we wanted to include some content that would help people just be deliberate about, what do you do with that kind of traumatic experience? And how do you integrate that into your life? Interpersonal skills, you all have both talked about the idea that you have to be assertive in a new way with people in your life, with your healthcare team. And that requires communication skills that you might not yet have developed over the course of your life prior to your SCAD. We've got a whole module on communicating with your healthcare providers, and I was really pleased to hear what Katie and Melissa said about that kind of circumstance, because I think a lot of what we offer on the app really aligns well with y'all's observations. Social media in SCAD, social media can be incredibly powerful and helpful for SCAD survivors. It can also be terrifying for SCAD survivors, and somehow you've got to strike a balance in the social media world around SCAD. And so we have some suggestions and some tools to help you do that. Exercise in SCAD, we've got some of the leading experts talking about exercise. Jackie Saw and Tara Birch up at University of British Columbia. Managing chest pain, right? And kind of beginning to understand the difference between benign chest pain versus dangerous chest pain. How do you do that? How do you identify that? How do you talk with your doctor about that? So we've got some information on that from folks at Stanford. And then a module on research in SCAD, the importance, for example, of participating in research and the registries that are out there now. And then a module from an expert that I know at CU Boulder who's written a book on sleep about sleep in SCAD. So for each topic, we've also got a couple of other topics that were not on that slide, but here's what you'll find when you get onto the app. For each topic, there are 3 components. There's a kind of written bit of content, a little bit of education around whatever the module is. So this one is on stress. And then there's a video from an expert. So this one is Katie Sears Edwards from Stanford talking about stress. And then we have an interactive part of the module where you can take a quiz or do an activity or create a plan for yourself in that module as well. This is how you get it. So what you'll need to do is go to this website, www.scadwarrior.com. Find the installation instructions for your device. There's also a little video on how to install it onto your iPad or your phone or whatever you want to use. It's supported on these platforms. You'll create an account, you'll set up a user ID and a password, and then get started. For the people who have already downloaded the app, what we're hearing is that it's pretty easy. The directions are quite clear. Thank you, Paul Embleton. And that it's a pretty low stress procedure of getting the app installed. But if you have some trouble, I guess our first piece of advice is to go to the tech people that you normally rely on in your life. For me, it's often my kids. My husband is great too, but like somebody who's a teenager would be able to do this in 2 seconds. We don't have, this is like, we have no budget for this. This is on a shoestring. So there is nobody like manning the phones or anything like that to provide support. We do have, if you really get into trouble and can't upload it, we do have an email, and Paul and I will be standing by in the next little while to, next week or so to respond to emails. But hopefully we've set it up so that it's pretty easy to put on your phone. We're so excited to be able to release it today. We finally got our privacy language done and our terms and conditions looked at by the attorneys, and we've got everything on there that I think you need to get started. But we're super excited. It's been a long process, and I most of all just really hope that it's helpful for y'all.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I know I can definitely speak to that. I've been very excited, and I had the opportunity to start using the app and to do a little bit of testing with it. And it's very easy to download. It's different since it's not in an app store, but the website instructions and the video on there are completely straightforward. So I definitely encourage it. It's also really neat, just from my experience with it, if you're a person who likes to go module by module and follow your steps and do all your things, check your boxes, but it's very easy to go reference certain modules too.
Yeah.
To go back and look through and say, oh yeah, what did that say? Like I need a recap on stress. Or managing stress, not more stress.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we really wanted to, I should have said something about that, but we really wanted to develop something that people could find useful at various times over their SCAD recovery journey. And so there's some things that are going to be more useful for you at the beginning, when you're just learning about SCAD. And then there's other things that you can just keep coming back to, and they're still useful, 5 years later.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. Because this has just been really incredible, getting to bring all three of you together and go over this. One thing that we have put together, I'm going to pull up, is a slide. Be able to see this, on just some ideas. I mentioned at the beginning, and I think all four of us have talked about the idea that advocacy looks different, at different points for different people, depending on what we're comfortable with, and at different points. I know after my first SCAD event in 2007, when we didn't even know it was SCAD, I just wanted to hunker down, go back to, life. And that was a form of self-preservation and advocating for myself in a way too. So we've tried to put together just a list of some ideas. Obviously, this isn't comprehensive, and I think a lot has been discussed. But the idea that just some ideas to kind of get people started and thinking about what might work, what might benefit you, what serves you right now. And so some of these, as you see, are more on the individual level, that, finding out more about your diagnosis, bringing together a great medical team, and also connecting with other people. And sometimes that is talking about your diagnosis, and sometimes that's finding times and activities that is spent not talking about your medical history. Sharing your story. There's various ways to share your story. We do have some information people have asked. I think I was watching some of the comments on Facebook come in, and there is some information on the SCAD Alliance webpage in terms of printouts if you want something physical to be able to hand to, whether that's a local emergency room or your other providers. Enrolling in clinical trials, the one that what we're supporting an iSCAD registry, which is a multi-center registry to be able to look at such a big amount of data. There's information on our website under iSCAD, under research and iSCAD registry. And then also federal advocacy. This is one that Dr. Wood brought up, and it is so important to be able to advocate for women's health, for heart health, for coverage for things like cardiac rehab. For that, I'd encourage you to talk with your cardiologist, talk with your other health professionals that you're seeing, and being able to kind of get involved with those efforts. You don't have to go at it alone. And then raising money for research too, whether that's hosting Facebook fundraisers. We've had some patients or some people supporting SCAD Alliance I can speak to just because I'm here, but supporting SCAD Alliance through things like either birthday fundraisers or product fundraisers, or donating. And then of course I want to wrap up with pacing yourself. I know this is a lot of ideas, really excited. Like I said, I've been taking notes the whole time too. But all of these are, yep, I have mine too, Kate. All of these are not, nobody can do all of these at one time. And so just wanted to get some ideas. I'll put this on our website as well, and can add in other things that people are doing if you want to join the conversation. So with that, I am going to wrap up unless anybody has anything else to add from the three of you. But thank you so much. This has been absolutely incredible. I think Katie said it best, I leave this feeling empowered and hopeful, with being able to advocate for, our own health and for SCAD as a diagnosis. So really want to thank the three of you for joining, and for everybody watching for joining our Ask the Experts, a conversation hosted by SCAD Alliance webinar today. We will be posting this along with all of our other webinars are on our website, scadalliance.org, as well as our Facebook and YouTube channels. So thank you so much, and we will see you again next month.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.